All right, I believe we are live now. It is a Sunday, and to be frank with you, I'd rather be resting right now. And so, anyways, my one little day off. So we're going to be talking about how does FSS work, and that's the Family Sufficiency Program. And we're going to talk about requirements, applications. We're going to do a module essentially. Now, a lot of you that are probably running this video, as it stands now, this is a live video, but by the time most of you find it down the road on Google or maybe through YouTube, it'll be pre-recorded. So there's a lot of information I'm going to try to put out here comfortably. Also, we'll do a few introductions. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I work with thousands of clients every year in relation to Section 8 housing and so on. I'm an independent contractor. I don't work for HUD or the Housing Authority. I work independently, and it's probably why I'm really good at my job. I'm not under the iron curtain of the Housing Authority or HUD. So, that being said, if y'all look very closely, and most of you that know my channel well, I have a lot of cats. I rescue them, and there's one right there. So don't be surprised if you see a bunch of them come and go. Part of the channel. They're my little Hollywood stars. I love them much. I rescue cats, by the way, and y'all see that in many of my videos. Beyond the introduction, I have around 400 videos. You can also see my website. And if you need help, you're tired of struggling with the process of housing, Section 8, low-income housing, affordable housing, discrimination, and many wide factors that go into dealing with housing or subsidies, you can reach out to me, and if it's appropriate, I can help you with your case. All right. All right, so let's start the module real quick. Now, as much as I'd love to be able to verbatim a lot of the information for FSS program, I cannot. My expertise in this area is somewhat limited, but I still know better than most. So right now we're going to what we're going to talk about is what is the Family Sufficiency Program and how that actually works. And the information I'm giving you should be utilized across all states and counties, and there will be little deviation from it. So what it does essentially is helps families increase their earnings and build financial capacity and assets. In simpler terms, it helps you save money. It helps you save money over a course of time that's limited through the program. The FSS program serves families in the Housing Choice Voucher program. In other words, most of you that have any type of voucher, it services you. And let me make a clarification about families. HUD and the housing authorities always do not make this distinction. A family can be even a person of one, okay? It can also be two different families living in one home. So you don't necessarily need to be related to the people also that are on your lease. Families living in public housing. Public housing is when the housing authority owns the property. So they not only give you a voucher, but they may own the building. And it also means that public housing can be a large complex that is privately owned. But in most cases, this program only be when the housing authority owns the property itself. Okay. There is a different distinction in different cities. Families living in HUD assisted multifamily developments. That's just a really neat way of saying project-based housing, okay? FSS. Now, for the rest of the video, we're just going to call it the Sufficiency Program, okay? Because I don't feel like having to repeat FSS all the time. So for the Sufficiency Program, it is a voluntary program for families, and a family can choose whether or not to participate in it. Some FHAs, that's another cool acronym for Public Housing Authority or the Housing Authority, okay? So we don't have to go back over what PHA means anymore, are required to offer the Sufficiency Program to satisfy a mandate tied to their receipt of housing and assistance. And this is a program that's been on for decades. Many of you may remember it from the 70s and 80s as a welfare stimulated program. However, it is not the same with what it used to be. Housing programs are nothing, even what housing authorities do these days is not the same as it was in 2010, much less those of you that remember the program from the 80s and the 70s. So I'm going to move down and we're going to talk about what self-sufficiency means. The Sufficiency Program seeks to help participants make measurable progress towards economic security so they no longer need welfare programs or less dependent on rental assistance and are better able to achieve their goals they set out for themselves and plan for the future. In other words, again, just a very neat way of saying that you're saving money. You're probably going to be able to transition into utilizing your voucher to purchase a home if they offer that program at your specific housing authority. So, over that course of time, while you're saving money and you're being subsidized in the self sufficiency program, you might have the opportunity to get involved in the home purchase program as well. There are two key factors to FSS program, which is escrow savings account. Now, as a better example of escrow, for those of you that may not learn what that escrow means, is essentially when you let's imagine a bank and let's imagine a loan. An escrow account is where you're really just kind of putting in the money to ensure that there will be payment later. Um, so, number one is a financial incentive for participants to increase their earnings in the form of escrow savings account that increases as a resident. Their earnings tend to increase over time with savings. The escrow account helps participants build savings they can use to improve the quality of their life and blah, blah, blah. Escrow funds can also help participants pay for key services such as car repair, employment training, and so on. Also, the secondary part or factor of the sufficiency program is going to be case management coaching. Now, look, let's make no mistake. There are lots of people that like to offer things like coaching and job training. We all know what kind of nonsense that is. We've all, at some point in our life, have had to go to some ridiculous program, watch somebody's 1970s video, and then talk to a bunch of people, talk to somebody running that particular little video and program, and it's all just a bunch of nonsense. It's not based on reality. So I have some pretty harsh opinions about that particular part. I would say that case management may be useful in that respect, but keep in mind that the type of casework I do, where I actually venture out into the process of all this policy, procedure, and so on, most case management personnel are not trained to do what I do. If anything, their job is to make you feel better about the situation. And that magical thing they always say, connect you with services, which means passing the buck. I'm not going to really help you. I'll help you sign your name on this, and then I'm going to give you a phone number to some other place and make you their problem. So I would say that case management and coaching through this may be useful in respect of them teaching you about the program, but do I believe they actually would be any good at case management or coaching you towards anything useful? Probably not. Just being frank. The escrow account, FSS escrow account, is a savings account that the housing authority and also owners maintain on behalf of the participant being you. Participants build saving in escrow as their earnings increase. So you would think of this program a lot like you starting out at a low-end job, and as you're going through school and other things, you may be able to increase your income over time as you start taking higher positions or you graduate from college and so on. Even late stage folks, 40s, 50s, 60s, may be doing different things. And so this escrow account is there in place to give you a big lump sum payment. And of course, there are interventions throughout that process over those years where things come up where you'd be able to possibly pull from that. So we're talking about a little bit how it does work. Families with a housing choice voucher or living public housing, better known as project-based housing or subsidy properties. The contract generally pay rent based on a percentage of their income. So that hasn't changed any. So, when you're utilizing a voucher, it's never changed any. You're being subsidized by the United States government, and you pay a fraction of the money that you're earning, and that becomes your rent over a period of time. I think where this does change is when the family's income rises to the amount where you're starting to exit having to use this. You must start paying towards the rent as it rises. So there are some particular things that this reminds me kind of rapid rehousing, where it's over a 2-year period. I would say that this is kind of a clone of that program, except rapid rehousing is a program where you're able to get in and they pay all the rent for a couple of months, and then the payments start to degrade, which means you start having to pay more and more rent, and they're paying less and less. This just seems to have an attachment of an escrow account where you have money going. You're forced to save money, as well as be able to utilize the voucher for a certain period of time. But there are some perks built into this. So the contract generally pays rent based on a percentage of the income. When a family's income rises, the amount of the family must pay towards its rent rises. One of the great benefits of this program is the opportunity to recapture a portion of the increased rent through the escrow account. So as your rents are increasing, they're throwing money into your escrow. Deposits to the escrow account occur when the household earnings increase and lead to an increase in rent. So generally, when this happens, the housing authority will deposit an amount equal to the family's increase. So let's talk about what that really means for a minute here. Let's say you got 1,000 in rent. Okay, you got that voucher. The voucher's paying 80% of it. Just suggesting that amount. Okay, so now your rent, you're paying $200. So what happens when you're making more money? And so you make more money, and they may only pay 70% of that voucher payment. So you now have a rent responsibility of $300. So for every little bit you pay over, they're going to match that and put it in escrow for you. And that could actually lead to quite a large amount of money. And so depending on what city, state, and housing authority you're working for. So you go from a college student up and you graduate and you get a better job. Now you're making 50,000 extra a year, which means they're paying less rent for you, right? So now they're paying only half the rent at 500 out of 1,000, and now they're matching $500 every month. You see the point? So it's a great savings match program, in my opinion. Okay, so take a break for a minute, see if there's any comments. Queen Joe, hello, Jay, and everyone. So I'm going to say a few hellos here while you guys are just watching me rattle along. Good morning or good afternoon, Queen Joe. How are you today? Queen Joe says, hello, Jay. I'll be using your services in the future, so don't end your services. Well, after 20 years, you can look at me, unless I get any fatter or have a stroke. I'll be around for a while. Me and the cats will definitely be here on this channel for probably another 30 years. Realist Dreamer has a retracted comment. Again, guys, when you say specific words in YouTube, it has the option to block them. Clearly, I'm not holding a mouse in my hand, so I'm not retracting it, unless you did actually say something that was pretty nasty. I don't know. It doesn't show me either. Gail Resources, how are you doing? Welcome back in the channel. All right, so we only have a few comments. I do realize that the family self-sufficiency video is not going to be wildly popular. Most people don't know about it, so I didn't expect a big crowd here. But still in all, I think we should share the information as of current and then just kind of get through it. Also, guys, if you have questions about ordinary Section 8, Housing First, Rapid Rehousing, HUD-VASH, VAWA. So there's so many different programs out there that can afford you a voucher. Any of those you have questions about, including home ownership with a voucher, you're going to comment down here and I'll get to it eventually. All right, so we're going to move on down. So talking about money in escrow accounts and talking about the case management or coaching. Now, the case management coaching is to achieve the goals for the participants, which would be you, and then the services and educational programs. HUD does not fund services for FSS. Instead, HUD funds the SS program coordinators. Now, those are the coordinators I've been talking about with PSH and so on. They work closely with you, and then they help you access services available in the community. Now, this is a function known as, they used to have a particular name for it, but it looks like they've removed that. Anyways, they make referrals and specialized assessments related to your health, education, family dynamics, and other issues. They help you with setting goals and providing ongoing support and encouragement to help participants, meaning you, with your goals and the guidance and roles that you need to play within the program. In other words, rules, policies, procedures, and they encourage you. That's about all these guys are really going to do when it comes to case management, unless you're just wildly uneducated and they have to teach you a lot more than you normally would. So a little bit of guidance and answer questions in relation to that. So what I'm going to go over a few things that are important that could help you with that you should focus on with case management. And you have to press them about this stuff. So financial education. So if you're struggling to pay college, it may be able to help you with grants and other things, at least connect you in those respects. Home ownership counseling, I would absolutely badger them about that. Of course, they have drug and alcohol treatment stuff there, but if you're struggling with that, then this program will likely not be a great option for you. Vocational training, they might be able to help you with the grants that cover most of the costs of that. In other words, going to trade school. Employment services, but typically that's going to shoot you back to state services. And then I think we've all, at some point in our life, had to visit a state sponsored home employment program. They're pretty miserable. They offer counseling for those if they actually have somebody there willing to listen to what you have to say. Then they can connect you with some resources to help you with childcare, or at least the cost of it. Healthcare services, and don't be fooled by that. They're going to send you to a free clinic, and I think we all know what that means. A 2-month wait, and every screaming child and coughing senior you'd ever seen in your life is going to be there. So it's important we manage the concept of this. Yes, these services are connected. However, I don't think that they're probably going to sit there and do a therapy session with you for an hour and a half. I always like to try to manage those expectations with people when you get pre-services, because it usually tends to be pretty arduous, and only those that can put up with a lot of bullshit are going to be able to deal with that particular aspect. Remember, it's optional, so I would focus on the things that actually have value, and the rest of the stuff they're offering, just whatever. So they offer employment services, education programs, services to build financial responsibility. Now, the services to build financial capacity, I would definitely look into that if you have issues with your credit and credit score, and how to resolve those issues. And as a quick mention, if you have medical debts, and you're able to negotiate those debts as of July 1st, 2022, this year, as of current, if you negotiate a debt, it will be immediately removed from your credit report starting on January 1st. So the credit bureaus will no longer report any debt that is $500 or less. And if you say you have a medical debt, and then you negotiate $1,000 debt down to 200, you pay it. Once it's paid, it's by law after July 1st, 2022, it has to be removed. Okay, and that should help a lot of people in that respect. And they have other wraparound services, and so that was all the ones we talked about. So, one thing that I'd say about this is, there are some other particular rules they do have built into this. Household members to become independent and income assistance from federal or state welfare programs for at least 12 months. The requirement applies solely to the ongoing cash assistance, food stamps, Medicaid, and short-term non-reoccurring payments included. In other words, if you're receiving food and benefits and cash assistance, TANF, TANF, then they're going to want you to exit that within 12 months, okay? For the head of household, they must seek and maintain suitable employment. And there doesn't appear to be a timeline, but I believe that the timeline for employment for the primary person that is utilizing this program would likely be between 1 year and 2 years. There are some things that they say that is important about the program, which is economic security, financial capacity, which means saving money, and then matching on the escrow. And then you're able to possibly utilize the voucher and program towards the house. Now, I told you about the home ownership program in some earlier videos. As an extension, that is an exit program as well, because it utilizes the voucher to pay the mortgage, and then they only do that for 10 years, and then you're exiting Section 8, period. It is not a lifelong program as well. Okay, so as you can see, the core of it, there's only a few good things about it. So let's just be clear. One, they'll match every dollar that. So as you're working and you're paying more rent, and they're helping cover less of your rent, that difference is put in escrow, and they match that amount. And at the 5-year period, you get all of that money back. Okay, that's really what it is. It's kind of like an IRA. Of course, they connect you with services, but who knows for each place in America what services would be of value. I would say, if anything out of that program, I would definitely have that one conversation about childcare if you have children. Utilize it if they're going to pay for it. If they have underwriting and for grants for college or trade school, utilize that part. And then the home ownership program. All that other nonsense, really, I mean, you know what's going to happen. You go in a room with 100 people, you watch some video made in 1981, and these people are supposed to be educating you on how to do your life better. So I've seen this shit play out before where they put a lot of nonsense in these programs. So just utilize it for what it's worth and then get out of it, okay? All right. And, I still think highly of the program, but I still think that it's not as effective as other things. I think it's a good holdover, and I think the escrow part's really good. Outside of that, it's a pretty hollow program, in my opinion, until they add other things. I don't think it's been wildly successful either. It's been around a long time, and a lot of people really aren't utilizing it. And there's very little information out there about it, so it kind of makes it interesting. If you view this video in the future, I would suggest just sending comments if you have questions. I'll try to help you out. But the simplicity of it's very basic. So look, if you go from the Taco Bell window and you end up being a manager as an engineer, okay, you graduate and you go from $13 an hour to $70 an hour, I'd price match them for the whole 5 years. Why not? Because when you exit, they're saying they're going to match every dollar. Do it. That's one of the free benefits, So I'd ride the program till the end and then get out. That's it. As far as all the other stuff, utilize them while you would need to. But I think most people realize that a lot of these free services they're great at first when you've got nothing, but as time goes on and you're living your life, they're really just an inconvenience, a wild inconvenience. So I would say that those options are available to you. They're an option. You don't have to participate in them. Use them for what they're worth at the time, and then exit them. Okay, because we all know that hanging out at the food stamp office once a month to recertify is not fun. Okay, just do it long enough to get you through this. That's the point. This is an exit program. It's to help you get out. That's all it does. That being said, I think that's kind of the end of that. So talk about some updates about the channel and some other things unrelated to this particular program. We're moving to all nighttime hours for consults. I'm only going to be doing consults on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays in an effort to reduce the number of hours I work with clients. Because I work with a lot of clients. I will no longer be working on weekends. I'm no longer going to answer emails on the weekend, except very loosely. I'm not going to be accepting any more calls on weekends. And the same thing on Wednesday, because, it's the sheer number of people that need help is greater than any one person could ever do. And so I have to kind of control that. And so we're adjusting with the pandemic, or at least the end of it, I hope. So, all nighttime hours to help everybody. That should help people in the West Coast because, again, these are all federal programs. I work with clients in all 50 states. It's not exclusive to just the zip code I live in. I work with everybody, including people coming from Puerto Rico, people that are coming from Hawaii, and so on. So now, if you're from, I get a lot of people from the UK, Canada, and stuff like that. Look, guys, I can't help you. Now, if you're dual citizenship, you're coming here, that's fine. But I don't know anything about the Canadian system. I don't know anything about the European system. And apparently there's a close parallels in the names for this. So another thing we should be aware of is that, as we go on in time through this pandemic, the cost of rent is changing dramatically. This pandemic has brought one very negative impact. First, we stimulated the economy with a lot of money. Then we caused a lot of people that already had money to go out and go in a frenzy to buy houses, which now we have a lack of housing, period, on the market because everybody's buying this stuff for investment. Then it's further exasperated by companies like those rental companies. I'm trying to think of the name. I keep wanting to think of Uber, but it's not. Let's just say it's the Uber of rental houses. And so people are buying up whole neighborhoods to lease out these places, homes for a night or two for a few dollars. And it's causing a lot of the market crunch. Interest rates are getting higher, and we're expecting already 2021 to current. I think we've had anywhere from a 10 to 40% spike in rents. Those spikes are directly affected by a bunch of landlords not being paid rent. And so the market is going wild. And it's not going to stop for quite a while, a number of years. So we should anticipate that rents will continue to rise to incredibly nasty rates. And the shortage of housing, though the market will slow down some, it's been at a breakneck pace. I do not believe that we are going to be exiting the nightmare of overpriced houses and high rents for a number of years. In fact, I believe that probably on an annual basis, this is just a guess. I'm not a real estate agent, but from what I've read and when I've talked to other professionals, we may see a continuous 16% change in the cost of housing, purchasing a home, as well as rents continue to go higher. I also think that a lot of the federal funding we've received for affordable housing, low income housing, and so on, is now reached the developers. They're building, and I think that some new housing is coming into market. But let's look at something. Since 2003, we've been pretty much in a negative. It's been at a negative asset at this point. So, in other words, we had enough affordable housing built in the 80s that's lasted us all the way to the early 2000s, around 2003. Then a lot of these homes have exited the market because the market was raised, and now the people that were using those low income properties to deal with Section 8 exited to sell the homes. And so as time has gone, we've now passed another 18 years, and we only have out of what we originally had back in 2000, nearly 80% of all that low income housing has exited the low income market. We are woefully under. In other words, there's simply not enough. We're at a negative point with it. So that was hope. That was why the American Rescue Plan, the American Infrastructure Plan, was put in place. Certain parts of it, anyways. And to be frank with you, we're looking at a severe housing crunch in this country for people that are low income. And what's being offered at the federal level with HUD and so on is not sufficient to meet the overwhelming demand. Thus, I'm seeing a great deal of people exit the metropolitan areas that are low income and are now moving out and farther out, or moving to states where housing is still reasonable. Where has housing been reasonable? Well, the state of Texas has been pretty good. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alabama, your southern states is typical. But eventually, those places will start to falter with low rents and affordable housing. We'll start seeing that even the last places in the country start to falter. So will it change? I don't know. I don't want to be a bearer of bad news, but I think that we're probably in for a wild ride. It's not going to be as wild as the last 2-3 years we survived this pandemic. But I think that the crunch and the pressure of all this is going to push people further into needing low income housing and affordable housing and so on. And just as a clarifying factor, as we look at the market, low income housing, the intent there is definitely behind more than just people trying to get welfare. You've got seniors that no longer have the income they used to and need the housing. You've got families with disabled children that may be exiting the market. And then we had the largest job loss in American history, except for probably the Great Depression, come up through the pandemic. And so a lot of people are having to utilize this, whether temporary or long term. So this is not really an optional program. Humans have to have housing. Another bigger issue that we're having is zoning laws that are choking the American cities. These zoning laws are creating all kinds of havoc when it comes to single family homes and multifamily housing. And because zoning laws are keeping everybody out. In other words, it's in the interest of the builders at this point to only want to build really expensive homes. The cost of materials, because the supply chain demands have increased dramatically. And so we know that. We watched 200 boats sit outside of Los Angeles ports. Can't get a lot of the things we need to build houses cheaply. So now builders the only way for them to make money as a builder is for them to enter what they call the medium high to wealthy markets and only build for them, you see? And so it further exasperates this. Does that mean the world's coming to an end and we're never going to have low income housing again? No. It just means that what we've experienced since the 80s is intensified by 200% and will continue in the past 2 years and will continue to intensify. So we must meet the plot, the match, the plot, and the course of things by trying to look at other options. And then some of you that are living in places like Florida, California, New York, and New Jersey, where you have dense populations, this may be the one time in life you're just going to simply have to retire somewhere else. It's becoming unaffordable as an absolution. And so I suggest to a lot of my clients that I understand that all your friends, your family, the people you go to church with, whatever, it's in New York. Maybe now is the time to pack the car up, or do you want to live in a broom closet? That's the thing, guys. You reach a certain point where there's nothing left to where you're living, then it's not worth being there. It'd be better to be lonely with affordable rent than it would be to live in a broom closet or homeless shelter in a big city. And I think that's what's happening. Only the wealthier are being left in the city in some cases. And look, housing is not that affordable, man. Look, even the cheapest place out there, man, you're looking at 150 to 200, 350K. I've recently looked at house loans. Bank come out at 550,000 as a pre-approval. I don't want a $500,000 house, but that's what the market's indicating. I would never be so stupid as to buy something that expensive. I don't care how much money I would make doing consulting work or anything else. That's a lot of money. Who wants to be stuck in 30 years note with that? You're trying to buy a house, get out of that. Same thing with a lot of you that I've been pressing a lot of clients that are seeking low income housing, seeking Section 8 housing and vouchers. The one thing that I've really been pushing everybody is if your housing authority offers the housing program to utilize your voucher to be able to pay a mortgage against the house, if you qualify to be able to get a house and you can use that, then you should do so. First time buyer programs, USDA loans, Fannie Mae, Fannie Mac, all these acronyms and names lead back to one thing. Do you have a 500 credit score, and have you been working for 12 months? Do you have at least 2 years of working history or 2 years of fixed income? And if you have those things and you got above, what'd be even better is if you have over a 620. If you got 500 or better, then you can probably get a loan shark. If you got 620 and better as a credit score, along with fixed income for 2 year or a 2-year job, then I would say it'd be a time to approach the housing market and see if you can get a little house. Now, I don't suggest any of you attempt to do this in some of the big crazy places like Orange, LA, and New York. You take those and you pull out a loan in a different city and state where the house isn't going to be something you're going to have a 90-year note. The goal, my friends, is not the prettiest house with the nicest kitchen. The goal is for you to own the home. If you own the home and the voucher's paying 80% of the mortgage, that means that's equity in there. So whose mortgage do you want to pay? You want to pay your landlord's mortgage or the voucher, or do you want to pay yours? Yes, there are other costs and things associated with it, but the reality of it is you're paying into something you could pull out of. When you're paying the landlord's mortgage, the only thing you're pulling out is when they tell you you've been evicted. Stop. That's the thing, guys. I'm trying to prepare you better to not be a victim of landlords and more to get out there and do it. Now, I know some of you have gotten wild, I'll get a mobile home. Well, they don't always want to finance those, but there are plenty of states where you can still buy houses around 100K, 150 that are still in good enough condition. Are you going to be able to do that in somewhere like California? No, because a $250,000 house in Texas is about $2 million in California. Who the hell would even want to pay that? $2 million. That means, and you'll be in your coffin, and you're still going to have to go back to work for the next 100 years to pay that shit off. And you're not even talking about a nice house. People selling crack houses in California. And I'm watching that you play out a lot in Florida. A lot of people, Florida's got together. No, they don't. There's too many people in Florida. And I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, what's playing out in California will play out in Florida. Too many people retiring there. There's not enough left out there anymore. And we're already seeing a surging homeless population in almost all the major cities over there. And Florida will fall victim just like California. The thing about it is, and one of the last stop on the road for big states is Texas. So far, this state has managed to keep this under control, but I do see this in the future, in the next 20 years, Texas getting inundated by everybody, because eventually everybody's going to figure out things are cheap here, that you can still get a job. The unemployment's very low. Unemployment rate is low here. You can still buy houses for a reasonable amount here. And so it's only a matter of time before it gets flooded and then it gets ruined and pick another state, Now, again, these are all my opinions based on reality and living long enough. There's a reason why part of my hair is white. It's not because I got hit by lightning. It just means that I have my own views on life. You don't have to agree with them, But I think that if I'm going to work with thousands of people every year dealing with housing in Section 8, work with brokers and real estate agents and investors, I think that I may not have the heartbeat of the market in mind. I may not have a PhD, but I think that I see enough of this and I learn from other professionals that I think that some of what I say has some merit. Okay. Well, guys, enjoyed talking with you all about all kinds of random topics. I also want to bring up one more thing before I go. So just bear with me. I'm going to give you all a couple links here. If you're struggling with your housing situation, you don't have all the answers. Your research hasn't produced the results you thought. The housing authorities not helpful. The people at HUD won't answer the phone, and you're at risk of possibly hitting the streets if you can't get through it. You can always check us out. But again, I'm not here to sell anybody anything. I am the owner, like I said, I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. You can look at the information, do your due diligence, check the reputation of me. You can call the Secretary of State, see we're registered. We're not sitting in China or Russia asking for Bitcoin and gift cards. We are a legitimate business in the state of Texas. Beyond that, and you have other people that can help. You have HUD specialists and so on, but it doesn't always help with housing crises. All right, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. I think I'm going to spend the rest of the afternoon with my cats and try to enjoy the Sunday and then get back to work Monday. It's been a pleasure talking with y'all, and hopefully you've gotten something useful out of this, or at the very least, a little bit of entertainment. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.